Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on Zoom for the launch of the Modern Money Lab and Torrens University graduate program in the economics of sustainability. In Australia, we'd like to acknowledge country before we start an event. So we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. I'm on the land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and I pay my respect to elders past and present and recognise that this land was stolen and never ceded. If you like, you can make your own acknowledgement by typing it into the chat box. So just a very, very quick word on Zoom housekeeping. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're being called upon to speak or ask a question in the Q&A session. Please don't be offended if one of our hosts or co-hosts mutes you. If we can hear some background noise, we might just mute you and then you'll need to take yourself off mute should you want to do that later. That's just to keep the noise to a minimum and make sure the recording is clear and audible to everyone. So yes, my name's Gabrielle Bond. I'm the CEO of Modern Money Lab, and I'm really, really thrilled to see all of you here today. And for the introduction, I'd like to hand over to Con Mikolakis, our Modern Money Lab chair, and he's going to be having a quick conversation with Professor Stephanie Kelton, who's joined us from New York.
Thanks, Gabby, and it's wonderful to have Professor Kelton, Stephanie, back with us. In fact, the last time I did this with Stephanie was January 2020 at Adelaide University. And oh, wow, has the world changed a lot since we've done this? And here we are, literally 2.5 years later, and it's really appreciate, Stephanie, you taking the time. And I thought just to get this started, we'll ask Stephanie a couple of questions and get her insight. So I think the first question I have for you, Stephanie, is we're here to launch the world's first postgraduate program that brings together both MMT and ecological economics. What are they and why link them together? I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Well, sure. And let me just start by saying that it is super exciting to me what you have all collectively decided to build at the University of Torrens and how enthusiastic they have been embracing this vision and the graduate program. I am so excited for what is to come and just cheering you on from the sidelines. And if I can at any point be useful or helpful to you in ways that draw me in off the sidelines to do other things, you know that I will never say no to you, to Gabby, to Stephen, to Phil. So let's talk about this, this merging together of MMT, where I have spent the better part of the last 25 years of my professional life, and ecological economics, which is new to me, but not new to many of you, to Phil and to Stephen and to the many experts that you're going to bring in to build out this program. So let me start with just some words on MMT, right? Because, and it has to be in a sense fairly superficial because we don't have very much time. But MMT will teach students who enter this program about the economy, not some hypothetical, stylized, imaginary version of an economy, but the economy as it actually exists in the real world. And you might think, well, isn't that what everyone does when they take an economics course? And it might surprise you to learn that it is not at all what is taught in conventional economics programs. And so it is really important that we teach economics in a way that wrestles with all of the complexities and nuances that are glossed over in traditional programs. And we wrap our arms around these things because it's very difficult to try to think about how to do economic policy if you don't actually have a good understanding of the economy and how it works. And so that's the first thing. MMT does put a lot of attention on the monetary system. It teaches us about money, how to think about money, not just private money, like what commercial banks and other financial institutions create, but also this thing that we can call public money, what is it? Where does it come from? How can we operationalize it? How can we use it to our collective benefit, right? To serving the public interest. So it's about the monetary system. It teaches us how to understand the mechanics of government finance, how to think about things like taxes and government deficits and borrowing and the limits on government spending. And so in some sense, you can think of MMT like a user manual, right? You buy a car, it comes with a user manual. You look through the first few pages and there are diagrams and buttons and labels, and it tells you, where the brake is and where the accelerator is and where the windshield wipers are. And so you kind of learn the landscape. It gives you a user manual so that you understand how the vehicle operates, but it doesn't come with a roadmap that tells you where you need to go, right? So MMT shows us, in a sense, what is possible using macro policy, fiscal, monetary policy, regulatory levers, and other things, but it doesn't tell you precisely how to drive the car. And this is where I think the ecological economics becomes very important, because economists, should stay in their lane. I'm using a lot of car metaphors here, but we're not climate scientists. Most of us are not environmental economists. Some are. Most aren't ecological economists. Some are. But by and large, most of us had just, training as macro theorists. So here we are understanding that the monetary system for many countries, those that operate, you'll learn later, with a sovereign currency, can do things that they often don't think they can do to improve economic outcomes, social outcomes, life, right, well-being, because they're afraid to use the tools because they don't really know how they work. And ecological economists and ecological economics comes in and tells us, well, you also have to think carefully about how you use those tools, right? Just because you can pull levers and understand how they work, you also have to bear in mind the planetary boundaries and other limits and constraints. So it's not enough just to say there isn't a revenue constraint or a budget constraint as conventionally understood. There are these other limits that are important too. And this is where the two of us can really learn from one another, and what I think is so important about this program.
Yeah, fantastic. What a fantastic response to that question. Thank you, Stephanie. And that's following on from that. What kind of impact do you think the graduates will have on the future of economics when we look at
the graduates of your program?
Yeah, this program and people who do MMT and ecological economics. But yeah, let's be selfish. Let's think about our program for this one, the Torrens Uni, the courses we'll be doing.
Yeah, I mean, well, like we've been saying, for the most part, economics and those who go through a graduate training in economics come out with varying degrees of difference, right? I mean, they're more or less cast from the same die. And this program is going to produce a very different student, one that can think critically and differently about a whole range of things, not just the monetary system and government finance and all of that, but you're going to have breadth of knowledge that takes you far beyond what you would get in a conventional master's program doing economics, or some of you might go on to do a PhD. Some of you may do a certificate or the diploma. Whatever level you're in, you're going to have breadth of knowledge that is going to be so useful to you, whether you find yourself working as an advocate or an activist or in public office, whether you become a staffer, an advisor to an elected official, whether you run for office yourself, whether you work in finance or business, whether you become an academic. In all of these different areas, we will reap huge benefits from building out sort of an army of people who have been trained to think in these different ways and to bring with them into those jobs these kinds of insights that are so sorely lacking.
Yes, and I think this is the key to our courses. It's going to move the window and encourage a broader debate and constructive debate on how society works. So that's really exciting. I guess the last final question is one of more personal and interesting to know, and that is, how did you and Fadhel meet? How did you connect?
Well, I think we met first at one early MT conferences. We had a very brief interaction at that point, and then when Stephen was at the University of Adelaide, just before the pandemic hit, I think he was instrumental in inviting me to come and ultimately to be invited to be the Jeff Harcourt visiting lecturer at Adelaide University. And so I spent 2 weeks there, and this is when I got to know Stephen quite well. We spent a lot of time together. I was finishing up my book, and I can remember sitting in the office space that they gave me and saying to Stephen, "Don't leave that chair. You have to read the revisions while I'm typing." And we were going back and forth, and he was, reading what I'd written and giving me feedback and input. And so he's just one of the most lovely people. And Gabby I met and spent time with there, and you, Con, as well. And I met Phil there. So I feel in a lot of ways like whenever we gather for these kinds of things, I'm getting back together with friends and maybe even increasingly family. So that's the story.
Fantastic. And I have to say, we are here today primarily because of yourself, Stephanie, and Gabby, and Stephen, and Phil, saying, can we do something better? And to be fair, you helped start this, so I can't thank you enough. And I see in the background the deficit myth. I just encourage everyone who hasn't read it, give it a go. It's a fantastic book to read. It's very easy, and it's a good segue into what we think we'll be doing for this course. Thank you, Stephanie. I am now going to pass over. I think Stephen will discuss the course. Is that right, Stephen? So I will hand it over to one of the architects in the bright 1 a.m. morning of London.
Yes. Yeah, well, not quite London. I'm in that's like saying Adelaide's Sydney. Okay. On the south coast of England. At my dad's, making a rare visit to my dad. I'm not the only person that's teaching on this program that is on the call at the moment who is in Europe, because I've just seen Senada Nukic, who is our quantitative statistics lecturer, who is somewhere in Eastern Europe and has got, goodness me, if it's 1 a.m. here, it's 2 a.m. there. So she's more more of a hero than I am for being on the line. But thank you ever so much, everybody, for coming. There are so many familiar names I've seen of the list of people that are on the line. There are people that I don't know as well. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it was wonderful to hear from Stephanie. She was much too generous, as she always is, and she's not. I don't think she's on the line anymore, so I can safely say she is perhaps the nicest person that I've ever met, as well as one of the most brilliant, and has been, like Con was just saying, an inspiration to us in a variety of ways, but including in putting this program together, as has Fadhel Kaboub, who we'll hear from a little bit later. I'm taking the easy way out, I hope, if this helps, if this works, because it being 1 a.m. and my brain not working that well at 1 a.m., I pre-recorded a video in Adelaide, which Gabby is going to play, so I'll shut up.
Yes,
I hope it works.
This video will give you a lot of information about how the courses are structured and how everything's going to work. Keep putting your questions in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. If we can't get to your question today, we will take it on ourselves to follow that up and make sure you get the answers that you need. So yeah, keep asking questions. There'll be a lot probably arising from this presentation, but there's a lot of information in here as well that could be useful. So let's press play and hear what Stephen's courses presentation is about.
My name's Stephen Hale, and I'm here to talk to you about the Global Masters, Graduate Diploma and Graduate Certificate in the Economics of Sustainability, which we at Modern Money Lab have designed in partnership with Torrens University, Australia. Just to give you a high-level overview, we've been working on this for well over a year, but in September 2022, Modern Money Lab and Torrens University will collaborate to launch a unique contribution to global economics education. Unique in the sense that, as far as we know, no such program as this, which covers both ecological economics and modern monetary theory, currently exists anywhere in the world. So it is genuinely a global first. The program will include courses ranging from graduate certificate to doctoral level. Actually, the taught courses will be a master's degree with a graduate diploma and a graduate certificate sitting within that master's degree to allow you exit points in case you want a training in ecological economics and MMT, but don't want to go all the way to a master's, as we'll see in a moment. As it says in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, the university will offer a suite of online postgraduate courses in the economics of sustainability based on modern monetary theory and ecological economics, designed by us at Modern Money Lab. Why modern monetary theory? If I'm known for anything, I'm known as an MMT economist. The last 25 years has seen the emergence of modern monetary theory as an approach to economics and public finance, which has proved to be the first serious challenge to mainstream or neoclassical macroeconomics in at least 70 years. If we are to plan for and to execute a successful transition to a sustainable and just future economy, this is going to require policymakers, advisors, activists, and the broader community to understand and make use of the insights provided by modern monetary theory. Why ecological economics, if that isn't obvious? A training in ecological economics provides you with an understanding of the relationship between human economies and the ecosphere, or the natural environment. It's an essential part of the toolkit of a 21st century economist at a time when societies urgently need to transition away from a focus on gross domestic product growth for its own sake towards the pursuit of human and planetary well-being, respecting the principles of ecological sustainability. In other words, we need very rapidly to adjust to the fact that we live on a finite planet and that you can't have infinite growth in the impact of human activities on the natural environment on what is a finite planet. We're not respecting the principles of ecological sustainability at the moment, and we need to move within our planetary boundaries very soon if we are to maintain a healthy and stable environment in the future. As I've already said, there are, as far as we're aware, no postgraduate courses where people can combine modern monetary theory with sustainability. Indeed, you could say the same thing for undergraduate courses, but this is a postgraduate program. Our venture then is a unique offering meeting a clear need. What will students learn throughout the course? The economics of planning for a world with limited ecological resources and dealing with what is, at least to an extent, an inevitable process of climate change now, and a realistic understanding of the mechanics of modern monetary systems and their implications for policymakers and decision makers more generally when dealing with the economics of planning for a sustainable future. Here is the set of qualifications where you can see the nesting. If you complete 4 subjects, and we'll have a look at what those subjects involve in a moment, you'll graduate with the graduate certificate in the economics of sustainability, and many people might want to do just that. If you add a further 4 subjects, then you'll qualify for the graduate diploma. If you complete 12 subjects on our program, then you'll have completed the master's degree in the economics of sustainability of Torrens University, Australia, and you'll be in a position, should you choose to do so, to engage in further study, which would be at least 3 years full-time equivalent, if you wish to carry out doctoral research and qualify for a PhD. So here's the duration of the course again. The graduate certificate is a minimum of 1 trimester full-time equivalent. That is very full-time study. It involves doing 4 subjects across a trimester. Many people would find 3 subjects a full-time load. Most people, I imagine, doing the qualification will be part-time students, and so we'll take 1 or 2 subjects per trimester. If you take 2 subjects at a go, then it's going to take you 2 trimesters to qualify with your graduate certificate. And the graduate diploma involves twice as much study as the graduate certificate, and not surprisingly, the master's degree involves 3 times as much study, and in principle could be completed within a calendar year full-time, but that would be a very full-time year of study. The delivery is 100% online. The workload is 10 hours per week for each subject in a 12-week trimester, and 3 hours of that will involve either watching lecture videos by people like myself or engaging in online seminars. If you can't get to those seminars live, they'll be recorded as well. But we'll endeavour to offer the seminars at least twice every week in each subject to cater for different time zones. The details of the course, entry requirements. Torrens University Graduate Certificate entry requirements specify successful completion of a degree recognised in Australia as a bachelor's degree. That's what AQF, the Australian Qualifications Framework Level 7 means, in any discipline. However, applicants without formal qualifications are eligible to apply if they have 7 years of professional, administrative or managerial work experience, and applications will be assessed by Torrens University on a case-by-case basis. Of course, if you qualify for the graduate certificate, you effectively qualify for the graduate diploma and master's degree, because if you complete the graduate certificate, then you are already halfway through the graduate diploma. The pricing will be approximately 3,300 Australian dollars per subject initially. And unlike, I believe, all Australian universities, we will not be charging a premium fee to international students. International students and Australian domestic students will be having the same learning experience and paying the same fee, albeit that Australian students may qualify for fee help support from the Australian Commonwealth Government. Here are the subjects. We're only going to have 2 subjects available to people starting in September. So we are looking at people starting in September on a part-time basis. The 2 foundation subjects, Foundations of Real-World Economics and Foundations of Modern Money, Institutions and Markets. There will be 4 subjects we're planning to be added to the subjects that are available in the first trimester of 2023. That's starting in February 2023, and you can see them listed there. A further 4 subjects we are planning to have available in May 2023, in the second trimester of 2023, and the final 2 subjects, and these final 2 subjects are only available to people taking the master's degree. They're not part of the graduate certificate or graduate diploma, will be available in trimester 3, 2023, which is September next year, September 2023. On the right-hand side, you can see the people that are writing those subjects. To those of you with a background in ecological economics, you'll certainly recognize the name of Phil Warne. Those of you with a background in modern monetary theory, you'll recognize, well, and you might or might not recognize my name, but you'll recognize Scott Fulweiler on there and Dirk Entz. And the other people you can see on there are people that I have worked with over many years or known for many years, who I know are excellent in the subjects that we're asking them to write for us. This is a truly global set of academics we have here. We've got people writing for us in Germany, elsewhere in Europe and in the US too. Why are we doing this, finally? In most economics degrees, the mechanics of the monetary system is either ignored or misrepresented. Bias in policy debates. That's where we get austerity. It's where we get governments talking about aiming for balancing their budget over time or running budget surpluses without any consideration of the impact of that on private sector balance sheets. And it's where we have central banks raising interest rates to try and deal with rising inflationary pressures, even when that may be inappropriate, particularly where those inflationary pressures come from the supply side of the economy. But worse than that, there are no subjects offered at all in most universities in ecological economics or the economics of climate change. And even environmental economics is often just an elective, something you might do in the second or third year of your degree, and something which many people won't study at all when they are graduating with an economics degree. But environmental economics, it sits within mainstream economics, and it treats, for example, climate change as something that you ought to be able to fix if you just taxed carbon emissions and got that right. The idea is that the economy would adjust and continue to be able to grow indefinitely over time if you've only priced the social costs of carbon emissions correctly to allow for a reallocation of resources to take those costs into account. So environmental economics asks no fundamental questions about sustainability. Particularly, it does not ask the question about whether limitless economic growth is feasible on a limited or a finite planet without our biosphere deteriorating over time. So even in 2022, ecological economics and modern monetary theory are seriously neglected or completely ignored in the majority of economics degrees around the world. And this needs to change. The economics of the 20th century is simply inadequate to deal with the economic challenges that we face in the 21st century. So why am I doing this? Why is the Chief Executive Officer of Modern Money Lab, Gabriel Bond, doing this? And why are our colleagues doing this? Because in your life, something has to matter for you beyond your bank balance. So I've given up what was a secure job in order to work on this project. And I'm not the only person to have done that. Something has to matter for you beyond your bank balance or your daily concerns. And for us, this is that something. If we are to deal with the greatest challenges that our species has ever had to deal with, which is how I see climate change and ecological sustainability over the next century, the challenge of actually improving the quality of people's lives while defending the sustainability, the health of the environment within which they're living. We cannot do this with the mainstream economics of the 1980s and 90s. We need a new economics to deal with what are fresh challenges, or what are challenges at least that we've ignored up until now, much to our detriment. So that's why we're doing this, and we'd be very glad to welcome you onto this program. We'd be delighted to see you going beyond the program to make your own contribution as an ecologically trained and MMT trained economist in government, in the private sector, in a not-for-profit, in academia, to push for a just transition, not just for your national economy, but for the global economy over the next generation. We believe this to be vitally important. So we're going to love what we do, to use a term that Torrens University Australia attaches to its course offerings. And we're delighted to partner with Torrens University Australia to offer you this suite of courses, and we'd love to welcome you onto the courses.
Thank you, Stephen. Great presentation. I'm sure there's lots of questions. I haven't been actually monitoring the chat, so we will try and get to some towards the end. We have a short section from Phil Lawn next about ecological economics and the importance of ecological economics. Phil, if you're here, could you take yourself off mute and I will share your slides.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we
Yes.
can hear
Okay.
you. Here we go.
All right. If you just put up the
Yep,
slides. Thanks, Gabby.
There we go. I'll click through as you go.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about why ecological economics is important. We've heard a few things already mentioned about ecological economics and its importance. So, I'm just going to cover some of the main points associated with ecological economics, things ecological economics covers, but we don't have much time to deal with those other issues. So I'm just going to focus on the main and central points. We heard from Stephanie that MMT it focuses mainly on the monetary side of the economy. Well, ecological economics focuses on the real or the physical aspects of the economic process. And this connection between the two, modern monetary theory and ecological economics, is very important. Modern monetary theory without ecological economics is deficient, and ecological economics without modern monetary theory is also, in my opinion, deficient. The connection is important. Modern monetary theory recognises that if we're talking about a currency issuing central government, that particular type of government faces no financial constraint, but it, like you and I and businesses, always face a real resource constraint, and it's the real resource constraint that matters most. So that raises the question, what is the real resource constraint, and just how constrained are we? Well, ecological economics explains and outlines what the real resource constraints are and their implications. So ecological economics starts by recognising that everything we do has a physical or biophysical basis and connection, and therefore everything we do involves the ecosphere or the natural environment. So the economic process is essentially a physical transformation process. It starts with the ecosphere, and that's the extraction of natural resources in order to fuel the economic process. They enter the economy, which essentially involves the production of goods and services. So it involves the transformation, the physical transformation of resources to goods. That immediately results in some waste, and ultimately the goods that are produced, whether they be consumer goods or capital goods. If they're consumer goods, they could be non-durable goods, so they're immediately consumed. If they're durable consumer goods, they're like capital goods, they wear out and depreciate over time and eventually become waste. So that waste returns to the ecosphere or the natural environment. So the consumption of goods involves the transformation of goods to waste. So it starts with the ecosphere, moves to the economy and back to the ecosphere. So clearly there's an intimate connection between the ecosphere and the economic process that we cannot fail to recognise. Now I've talked about waste, there is some capacity for materials recycling, but that should be seen like whirlpools in a river. The economic process essentially involves the linear throughput of matter and energy, not a circular flow of matter and energy. So it starts with the extraction of natural resources, transformation of goods, and ultimately to waste, which returns to the natural environment. So could you put up the next slide, Gabby? So the economic process clearly has an ecological basis, which means that the economy is needs to be seen, unlike mainstream economics, which tends to look upon the economy as an independent system. The economy is, in fact, an interdependent subsystem of the ecosphere, and it has its own trophic structure, just like an ecological system, and is subject to the laws governing physical transformation processes, such as the first and second laws of thermodynamics, which means that to produce a given quantity of goods and services, it requires the use of a minimum amount of resources and ultimately leads to the generation of a minimum amount of waste. That input of resources and output of waste can be referred to as the throughput, and that throughput's required not just to expand the economy, if you want to grow the economy, but even to maintain the economy, because goods, physical goods, even if they're durable goods, depreciate and wear out over time and have to be replaced. So sustaining the economic process, we want to sustain the economic process. And if you think about it, the economic process really isn't all that worthwhile unless it can be sustained over time. Anything that you want to do really is only worthwhile if it's ecologically sustainable. Sustaining the economic process requires the rate of throughput, the input of resource, output of waste, to remain within the regenerative and waste assimilative capacities of the ecosphere or the natural environment. And currently, that is not the case. At the global level, at present, the ecological footprint at the global level is 1.7 times global biocapacity, which means that the rate at which human beings are currently using resources and generating waste is 70% larger than what can be sustained in the long term. These are not just, well, they're not ideas and thoughts, these in fact, or are facts, and they imply that there are ecological limits on the maximum sustainable scale of the economy. And that's probably one of the main things that differentiates not just ecological economics from mainstream economics, but even ecological economics from environmental economics. The issue of scale, not just how we do things, but the scale at which we do things. And scale, of course, meaning population times per capita throughput, which is total throughput. And that's largely ignored by mainstream and quite often even some heterodox schools of economics ignore the issue of scale. So the issue of scale, even if we're doing things to reduce unemployment or to attempt to achieve full employment, cannot ignore the fact that scale must always remain front and centre if what we do is to be ecologically sustainable in the long run. So essentially, if I'm going to sum it up, ecological economics is about how human beings can thrive whilst respecting planetary boundaries, how we can thrive as a species whilst operating within planetary boundaries in order to operate ecologically sustainably. So front and centre, the first thing that's important is sustainable scale of the economy. Secondly, the equitable distribution, not only of goods and services. If we're talking about equity, ecological economists think about equity more broadly. So it's about social justice. It's also about full employment. Ecological economists believe that full employment is not so much an economic issue, but more a social justice issue. And ecological economists believe that once you've dealt with the sustainability and equity issues, it's only then that efficient allocation becomes important, but is important because we want to make sure that the rate at which we use resources is not just simply sustainable, but that we use that sustainable rate of resources in the best and most efficient way so we can get the greatest value from the resources that we use if we're going to use them sustainably as we should. So that's essentially a summary of ecological economics and why it's an important part of the program, why modern monetary theory alone is insufficient, and why ecological economics by itself is also insufficient. You need the combination of the two, really, to be able to analyse problems and issues and deal with policy issues, as Stephanie said before, by understanding the economy as it is, not as some mythical system that you learn in mainstream economics textbooks.
Thank you, Phil. That's terrific. I'm sure there's lots of questions. I haven't actually been able to jump into the chat, so perhaps some of our other co-hosts might be able to answer some of those questions in the chat if possible. If not, we will get to them in time. I've also got a very short message from Fadhel Kaboub, which I would love to play for you. Fadhel sends his apologies. He wasn't able to make it live, but I think it's really worth listening to what he has to say as well. And then we'll open up the Q&A. Bear with me 1 second. I just need to screen share one more time.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Fadhel Kaboub. I'm an associate professor of economics at Denison University and the president of the Global Institute for Sustainable Prosperity. It's my pleasure to join you via this recorded message. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join you live. I'm currently in Tunisia on vacation with my family, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity to send my greetings and to join you in celebrating the launch of this fantastic graduate program at Torrens University, synthesizing modern monetary theory and ecological economics under the leadership of my colleagues Stephen Hale, Phil Lawn, and Gabrielle Bond, who's been a fantastic force behind the scenes, kind of bringing this program to fruition. And congratulations to the team again for getting the official accreditation just a few days ago. A few words about why I am very excited about this program, why I support it. The challenges that we all face today on the economic front, on the ecological front, on the socioeconomic front are not challenges that mainstream economics and traditional thinking can help us address. The IPCC report from a few months ago is sounding the alarm bells yet again, giving us very little time to act on a rapid scale to decarbonize the system and to decarbonize the system with a just transition. So this means that it's not sufficient just to get the science right. We have the science and it's very clear what needs to be done, but we also need to get the economics right. And we need to get the social and political issues right as well. And I think with the modern monetary theory lens that allows us to target exactly what needs to be done on the economic front without causing hyperinflations, without bankrupting countries, and without throwing people under the bus. And the insights from ecological economics also are extremely important in allowing us to transition to a sustainable economic system, a just economic system, and to do it in this very limited time frame that we have available to us. So I congratulate all of you as participants in this graduate program for being the first generation of, first cohort of students, of leaders in this movement that we need to build globally. My work, as some of you know, is mostly centered around how do we use the insights from modern monetary theory to understand how developing countries can, over time, develop economic strategies that can get them out of the structural traps, these neocolonial structural traps, that not only prohibit these countries from addressing the economic needs of their people, but also prohibit us as a globe, as a global community, from decarbonizing the system and doing this in a just and equitable way. So MMT insights and ecological economics insights are at the center of my work, my commitment to this professional career in the economics profession. And I would love to invite all of you to join us in this collective effort, not only on the academic front, but on the media front, on the organizing front, on the social media front as well, to educate, empower, mobilize people for action and action now. So once again, congratulations to the Modern Money Lab team, and I look forward to working with all of you soon. Thank you.
Fadhel, I love listening to him speak. He's just so passionate and inspiring. I think that was really worth listening to. So thank you very much. I just wanted to let people know that the recorded presentations from today will also be available on our YouTube channel very soon. So please keep an eye out for that. And you can find our YouTube channel from your emails and also from our website as well. I'll post a link in the chat to it. before we finish this session. So I think now is a good time to go to some questions. You probably have to wave your hand at me if you'd like to ask your question live, and I'll just scroll through my screens if anybody's got a question that they'd like to ask one of our Modern Money Lab team.
While you're doing that, I could just deal with Derek Nagel's question that I can see at the bottom there.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
What is likely to be the most common assessment method for a unit? Assignments, exams? Actually, we have deliberately used a slightly different approach to assessment in every subject. We call them subjects, the units that people are taking. There are no traditional exams as such, but just as an example, one of the two foundation subjects, modern money, and it's modern money markets and institutions, it's called, has assessments, which has 3 assessments. One of them involves writing an article as though you're a journalist about a particular topic. Another one involves writing a report for policymakers, and then the final assessment involves the presenter of the subject interviewing the students at the end of the course and actually asking people face-to-face questions, as we are now over Zoom or Teams. The interviews will be recorded and assessed relative to a rubric. And that's how that particular subject will be assessed. But every subject is different. The other foundation subject involves people being given, for example, as the last assessment, a number of questions to answer, which they can answer at their own time, in their own time at home, but where they have to produce the answers within 24 hours. So there is some time pressure involved, that sort of thing. But we have a variety of assessments across all 12 subjects. There are no 2 subjects that are identical. They all involve 3 assessments, though.
Thanks, Stephen. I see Damien has a hand up. Damien, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, probably more of a comment, and it's lovely to see everybody here, and thanks so much, everybody. It's not for this forum, but it would be very useful at some stage for prospective students to see how this course would be relevant to Sri Lanka today. Sri Lanka clearly is a live case study of, I guess, where everything has simply gone wrong historically for all sorts of reasons. So it's not for today's discussion, but I think the application of these case studies is going to be so important from a learning perspective and a practical perspective. That's just a comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, good call. Do we have anybody else who'd like to ask their question live? I'm just going to scroll through our screen so I can see if people are raising their hands. Oh, that was somebody. Freddie, would you like to take yourself off mute? Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me, Gabby?
Yes.
I actually wrote the question in the chat, but it's the fun part of study is often in-person interactions, meeting other students, meeting the faculty physically. I know this is planned to be an online course, but have you given any thought to having summer schools in the holidays? We can catch up physically on campus or somewhere, exchange ideas and benefit by that real-time live interaction with other students and faculty.
We haven't, to be honest, but it's something worth considering for sure. I think it would have to be optional though, because obviously some people wouldn't have the capacity to travel halfway across the world. But yeah, if people are in Australia or in Adelaide, that's something we could definitely look at. It'd be a social thing rather than anything that's part of, a compulsory part of the course.
Face-to-face classes, in a sense, are very much part of the course. We hope people, not everybody will be able to attend the online seminars live, but that's why we're doing them twice to try and fit all the time zones so that people at least have the option to do that. But yes, you know, part of the attraction of the program for many people is that they don't have to travel to Australia to take these courses. They can do them where they are around the world, and I think this is going to become much more common in the future. Because I say this, having flown around the world to visit my 85-year-old dad, but this is something I'm doing less and less of now, and that I think it's summer schools and that kind of thing are great, and if we have sufficient Australian resident students, it's something we'll think about. But I don't think we're going to be encouraging people to fly from the US to Australia to do this course for carbon emissions reasons as much as anything else.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, and then we come to Steph.
Very quickly. Yeah, so I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for interaction amongst the students as Stephen said, in the seminars / tutorials. So we'll give students the opportunity not just to interact with the faculty, but also amongst each other. So there'll be plenty of opportunity there to share ideas and so forth within the course itself, the courses, the subjects themselves during the trimester.
Thank you. Oh, there's a question. Cheryl has a hand up too. Cheryl, can we go to you first, perhaps? Sorry, Steph, we'll come to you next.
Just a couple of common questions that have been asked to me, and I hope that someone from Modern Money Lab can confirm. Just the amount of hours of study. This has become a common question for me over the last couple of days. So the hours of study, like we always say, it's approximately 10 hours of study. Can you just give us an idea of what the collaboration session timeframe will be, and then the required amount of probably self-directed study? And the option of what I always say, part-time versus full-time. So basically, if you're working full-time, I wouldn't recommend studying full-time as well. But if you could just give us an overview of the required amount of study time per subject would be great. And it'll support Phoenix and myself when we do talk to students upon application.
Yeah, great. Stephen, do you want to take that?
Yeah, as it said on the slides, and I could just add a little bit more to that. We said the recommended amount of time is 10 hours a week. Now there will be 2 hours, and in the subjects we're starting in September, this will involve 4 30-minute sessions. There'll be 2 hours of recorded lecture material each week, which people will need to watch. There'll also be a 1-hour collaborative learning exercise, which ideally, wherever possible, we want people to attend live and participate in. But we appreciate that, you know, it'll be different. Although we do it twice a day, people may be at work, or for one reason or another, they won't be able to attend. So it won't be compulsory. We can't make that compulsory. There will be some online interaction beyond this, but we'll record those collaborative sessions too. But ideally, we'd like people to get to those. So that's 3 hours a week. The other 7 hours will involve doing additional directed reading, and also preparing to complete and then completing the assessments in the program as well. So that's basically how it will work. And it doesn't matter whether you're full-time or part-time. For each subject, we will be expecting you to put in a total of 10 hours a week across the 12 weeks of the program. So that's why, yes, if you're in full-time work, even 2 subjects is a big time commitment, and some people might just want to take 1 subject at a time. And when I said, in principle, you could do the graduate certificate in 1 trimester full-time, well, that's 40 hours a week. That is a really, as far as studying is concerned, that is a really big time commitment. So for most people, even if they were studying full-time, they might only want to take 3 subjects because of the time commitment involved. But of course, some people will want to take more than 10 hours. Not everybody learns things the same way. Everybody has a different approach to studying and learning. So that's just a recommendation. On average, we would expect people will do well on the program, and I think it'll be great fun to do. It's a lot more fun than doing a neoclassical economics program anyway. Normally we'd recommend about 10 hours a week per subject.
Great, thank you, Stephen. I'm just going to come to Steph, and then I think we'll stop the recording, but we'll stay on the line a bit longer for people who want to hang on and ask their question to us after the formal part of the meeting has finished. So, Steph, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. Morning, everybody. Sorry if I'm taking up time from anybody else.
No, go ahead.
I'm just, I was just curious about what you guys think some of the possible employment opportunities from completing the master's degree are. I know that there would be a lot of really widely ranging things, but I'm sure that you guys have a lot of ideas about possible future employment from these studies.
Do you want me to go again?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, all right. Well, I have noticed rapidly the interest from the people that normally employ economists is rapidly shifting in our direction. So, for example, in the last couple of years, and this wouldn't have happened 5 or 10 years ago, but in the last couple of years, I've done a series of webinars for ANZ Bank. I've done a talk at the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. One of the supporters of this program, who, if it had existed, I think would have done this program, is now the chief economist at the ACTU, the main trade union organisation in Australia. One of our, our chair, as you would have seen, is Con Michalakis, who is one of the best known fund managers in Australia. There's a lot of interest in financial institutions too, because people are, first of all, people appreciate that, and in many cases have done really since the global financial crisis, that there is something wrong with the neoclassical approach to looking at economic management and thinking about how the monetary system works. And secondly, and this is particularly true in finance, where people are much less conservative than they are in some of our academic institutions. People appreciate now that we are up against a massive ecological challenge, and that the normal way of thinking in the past is just not going to work in the future. And so if you are, if you're working in a superannuation fund and you're investing people's money, these issues are becoming more and more important. Environmental sustainability, and of course, investors themselves are more interested in these kind of issues too. And for example, the UK Treasury last year published a report, the Das Gupta report, that talked about the possibility that there may have to be a transition to degrowth in the future. I mean, it's not a word that I particularly like, although I agree with the philosophy of the people that use the word, but the word degrowth has also come from a recent IPCC report. So in short, I think that people coming through this program will have in many respects the same professional opportunities that people going through the master's degree at the university that I used to work at have, but I think there'll be better economists. Yeah. And I think if this is not true already, in 5 years' time, they'll find they are experts in things, in issues that everybody wants to know about and nobody is an expert in. And that's a pretty good place to be.
Can I add too, just on Stevens, as someone who's in the private sector, I actually think this degree has a very broad range of employment opportunities, whether it's activists, policy, treasury, government. But in the private sector, whether you are issuing debt, how the plumbing of the financial markets work, how to use public money for the greater good, what are these constraints in using both public and private money, and how things are financed and how things should be grown, whether it's equity or debt. What does it mean in the modern economy to put resources to work? So I actually think it's right across from private sector right through to traditional sectors. And the best thing about this, and the reason I got involved, is this hasn't been taught anywhere. And so the ability to get up to, it's almost like a software hardware upgrade. You'll be learning right up to what's being applicable in the real world. And I think this puts graduates at a good chance. So your question, Stephanie, it's going to be a lot broader employment opportunities than even I thought was possible with learning this degree.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Con. Great response. I've just got one more thing which will take 1 minute to share, and I'm going to embarrass Stephen a bit here, but I want to put up a comment from a previous student of Stephen's, which I'd like to read for people. So this student writes, and this is about a course that Stephen taught at the University of Adelaide called Rethinking Capitalism. I took your class, Rethinking Capitalism, last year. I think it was in the first semester it was available. I came across your book as one of the readings for a different course I'm taking this semester, and rereading it reminded me how much of a game changer Rethinking Economics was for me personally. So I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you for deciding to do the course, and it has inspired me like no other economics course has in my degree, and it's given me so much motivation and direction for my future career path. The concepts you introduced and the paradigm shifts, economic and ethical, that I explored under that course has fundamentally changed where I plan on going in my career. And I've realized that I want to use, instead of becoming somebody who is a financial analyst, no offense to any financial analysts on the call, I've realized that what I want to do is to help people using economics. And I think our students in this course will experience that and more, because we're doing, instead of just one subject, we're doing a whole suite of subjects, 12 subjects that will actually have that same impact on people. And I really urge you all to think seriously about applying for these courses. Contact us with any other questions that you might have. And I think that's a really great point to stop our recording. But yeah, if you're keen, you can apply right now, even today. And that the link to apply is in the chat. And I've got to say, we've already had a few people who've actually taken the leap and applied, even though we haven't promoted that link very widely yet at all. So that is really, really, so you'll be in good company. And I think that's yeah, go Steve.
Thanks, Gabby. I'm happy, even though it's gone 2 a.m. here, I'm happy to stay on the line for the moment and deal with any questions of anyone who's still around that are in the chat, or if anybody else have any questions. We will have some other information sessions too, won't we?
Yes, yes, we will.
I know we will, because you told me.
Yeah, we've scheduled 3 Zoom informal drop-in Q&A sessions. The details of those are on our Modern Money Lab website under events. And we'll also be sending an email out early next week with all of the information that we talked about today and handy links, and also obviously the link to apply for our courses. So thank you so much to our presenters today, and thanks everyone for being with us. It's been a real great pleasure to run the launch of this amazing graduate program, and we look forward to seeing you in our virtual classroom.
Yes.